It's not complicated. Incidentally, in calling this Graham Buffett, I mean, it's just pure Graham. I was very fortunate because I picked up a book when I was 19. I got interest in stocks when I was about 6 or 7, and I bought my first stock when I was 11, but I was playing around with all this stuff. And I had charts and volume, and I'm making all kinds of technical calculations and everything. And then I picked up a little book, and it just said that you're not buying some little ticker symbol that bounces around every day. You're buying a part of a business. And as soon as I started thinking about it that way, everything else followed. Very simple. So we buy businesses we think we can understand. There's no one here that can't understand the Coca-Cola company. I would say there's no one here that can understand some new internet company. And I said at the annual meeting this year that if I were teaching a class in business school, on the final exam, I would pass out the information on an internet company and ask each student to value it. And anybody that gave me an answer, I'd flunk. I don't know how to do it. But people do it every day. I mean, it's more exciting. I mean, if you look at it like going to the races or something, you know, that's a different thing. But if you're investing, I mean, investing is putting out money to be sure of getting more money back later, you know, at an appropriate rate. And to do that, you have to understand what you're doing it in. I mean, you have to understand the business. And you can understand some businesses, but not all businesses. Yep.
Warren, so you covered half of it, which is trying to understand a business and buying a business, but you also alluded to getting a return on the amount of capital you invest in the business as an investor. And you know, that comes back to what are you paying for the business. How do you determine, you know, what you think is a fair price to pay for the business?
It's a tough thing to decide, but I don't want to buy into any business I'm not terribly sure of. So if I'm terribly sure of it, it probably isn't going to offer incredible returns. I mean, why should something that is essentially a cinch to do well offer you 40% a year or something like that? So we don't have huge returns in mind, but we do have in mind never losing anything. And I mean, we bought See's Candy in 1972. See's Candy was then selling 16 million pounds of candy at $1.95 a pound, and it was making 2 bits a pound or $4 million pre-tax. We paid $25 million for it. Took no capital to speak of. When we looked at that business, basically my partner Charlie and I really decided whether there was a little untapped pricing power there. In other words, whether that $1.95 box of candy could just as easily sell for $2 or $2 1/4. If it could sell for $2 1/4, another 30 cents a pound was $4.8 million on 16 million pounds, which on a 25 million purchase price was fine. We didn't do any, you know, we've never hired a consultant in our lives. Our idea of consulting is go out and buy a box of candy, you know, and eat it. But what we did know was that they had share of mind in California. I mean, there was something special. Every person in California had something in their mind about See's Candy, and overwhelmingly was favorable. They had taken a box, you know, Valentine's Day and given it to some girl, and she'd kissed him. If she'd slapped him, you know, we'd have no business. But as long as she kisses him, you know, that's what we want in their mind. See's Candy getting kissed. And if we can get that in the minds of people, we can raise prices. And I bought that I bought it in 1972. We've raised every year. I raise the price on December 26th. I raise it the day after Christmas, so that everybody, because we sell a lot at Christmas. In fact, we'll make $60 million this year. We'll sell 30 million pounds, make $2 a pound. Same business, same formulas, same everything. $60 million still doesn't take any capital, and we'll make more money 10 years from now. But of that 60 million, we make about 55 million in the 3 weeks before Christmas. And our company song is "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." I mean, it is. It is a good business. But the important thing about that business is that, think about it a little. Most people don't buy boxed chocolates to consume themselves. They buy them as gifts. You know, somebody's birthday. More likely, it's a holiday. It's Valentine's Day, single biggest day of the year. Christmas is the biggest season by far. But women buy for Christmas, and they plan ahead and buy over a 2 or 3 week period. Men buy on Valentine's Day. They're driving home. We run ads on the radio. You know, guilt, 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 guilt. You know, the guys are veering off the freeway right and left. And they won't dare go home without a box of candy when we get through with them on our radio ads. So that Valentine's Day is the biggest day. But can you imagine going home on Valentine's Day, and our See's Candy is now $11 a pound, thanks to my brilliance. And let's say there's candy available at $6 a pound. But do you really want to walk in on Valentine's Day and your wife's got all these favorable images of the See's Candy over the years, and she sees you, and that's the way she thinks of you during the rest of the year when you really behave kind of badly. And you walk in and say, "Honey, this year I took the low bid," and then hand her a box of candy. I mean, it just isn't going to work. So, in a sense, untapped price. It's not price dependent, basically. Think of Disney. I mean, Disney is selling, we'll say, home videos for, I don't know what, $16.95, $18.95, or whatever. All over the world, people, and we'll say particularly mothers in this case, have something in their mind about Disney. I mean, every person in this room, when you say Disney, has something in their mind about it. If I say Universal Pictures, you don't have anything in your mind. You know, if I say 20th Century Fox, you don't have anything special in your mind. If I say Disney, you've got something in your mind. And that's true around the world. Now, picture yourself with a couple of young kids, you know, who you want to put away for a couple of hours every day and get a little peace of mind. And you know, if you get them one video, they'll watch it 20 times. So you go to the video store or wherever you buy the video. Are you going to sit there and premiere, you know, 10 different videos and watch them each for an hour and a half to decide which one your kid should watch? No. I mean, let's say there's one there for $16.95 and the Disney's there for $17.95. You know, if you take the Disney video, you're going to be okay. So you buy it. And you don't have to make a quality decision on something that you don't want to spend the time to do. And so you can get a little bit more money if you're Disney, and you'll sell a lot more videos. Makes it a wonderful business. Makes it very tough for the other guy. How would you try to create a brand? DreamWorks is trying, but how would you try to create a brand that competes with Disney around the world and to replace the concept that people have in their minds about Disney with something that says Universal Pictures? You know, so that the mother's going to walk in and pick out a Universal Pictures video in preference to a Disney. It's not going to happen. You know, Coca-Cola is associated with people being happy around the world. We're every place they're happy. We're at Disney World or Disneyland, we're at the World Cup, we'll be at the Olympics. We're every place where people are happy. Happiness and Coke go together. Now, you give me, I don't care how much money, and tell me that I'm going to do that with RC Cola around the world and have 5 billion people that have a favorable image in their mind about RC Cola. It can't get done. You know, and you can fool around with you can do anything you want to do. You can have price discounts on weekends and everything, but you're not going to touch it. And that's what you want to have in a business. That's the moat. And you want that moat to widen. And if you're See's Candy, you want to do everything in the world to make sure that the experience, basically, of giving that gift leads to a favorable reaction. That means what's in the box. It means the person that sells it to you, because all our business is done when we're terribly busy. I mean, people come in those weeks before Christmas or on Valentine's Day, and there are long lines. So at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, some woman is selling the last person the last box of candy, and that person's been waiting in line for maybe 20 or 30 customers. And if the salesperson smiles at that last customer, our moat is widened. And if she snarls at him, our moat is narrowed. We can't see it. It's going on every day. But that's the key to it. I mean, it's a total part of the product delivery is having everything associated with it, say, See's Candy, and something pleasant happening. And that's what business is all about. Yep.
When purchasing a company, how much qualitative analysis do you do versus quantitative analysis? And have you ever bought a company where the numbers told you not to?
Those are the best buys. The question is whether have I ever bought a company where the numbers told me not to, and how much is qualitative and how much is quantitative. The best buys have been when the numbers almost tell you not to. I mean, because then you feel so strongly about the product, and not just the fact that you're getting a used cigar butt cheap, that it's compelling. I mean, I owned a windmill company at one time, so windmills are cigar butts, believe me. I bought it very cheap. I bought it at a third of working capital, and we made money out of it. But there's no repetitive money to be earned. I mean, there's a one-time profit in something like that, and it's just not. It's not the thing to be doing. I went through that phase. I mean, I bought streetcar companies and all kinds of things. But in terms of the qualitative, I probably understand the qualitative the moment I get the phone call. I mean, almost every business we've bought has taken 5 or 10 minutes, I mean, in terms of analysis. And we bought 2 businesses this year. General Re is, $18 billion or some deal. I've never been to their home office. I hope it's there. There could be just a few guys, and they say, "Well, what numbers shall we send Buffett this month?" I can see him, coming in once a month and saying, "Well, we'll just tell him we've got $20 billion in the bank this month instead of $18 billion or something." But I've never been there. And before I bought Executive Jet, which is fractional ownership of jets. And before I bought it, I'd never been there. I bought my family a quarter interest in the program 3 years earlier, and I'd seen the service and seen it develop well. And I got the numbers, but if you don't know enough to know about the business instantly, you won't know enough in a month or 2 months. I mean, you have to have sort of the background of understanding and knowing what you do understand and don't understand. And that is the key. It's defining what I call your circle of competence. And everybody's got a different circle of competence. The important thing is not how big the circle is. The important thing is staying inside the circle. And if that circle has only got 30 companies in it out of thousands on the big board, as long as you know which 30 they are, you're okay. And you should know those businesses well enough so that you don't need to do lots of work. Now, I did a lot of work in the earlier years just in getting familiar with businesses. And the way I would do that is I would go out and use what Phil Fisher called the scuttlebutt approach. I'd go out, I'd talk to customers, I'd talk to maybe ex-employees in some cases, I'd talk to suppliers, everybody. Every time I'd see somebody in an industry, let's say I was interested in the coal industry, I'd go around and see every coal company, and I'd ask every CEO, if you could only buy stock in one coal company that wasn't your own, which one would it be and why? And you piece those things together, and you learn a lot about the business after a while. And the funny thing is you get very similar answers as long as you ask about competitors. That, I'd say if you got a silver bullet, and you put it through the head of one competitor, which competitor and why? You'll find out who the best guy in the industry is in that case, or the one that's coming up. And there's a lot of things you can learn about a business. I've done that in the past on the businesses that I feel I could understand, so I don't have to do much of that anymore. It's a nice thing about investing is you don't have to learn anything very new. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but if you learned about Wrigley's chewing gum 40 years ago, you still understand Wrigley's chewing gum. There's not a lot of great insights to get or anything of the sort as you go along. So you do get a database in your head. I had a guy, Frank Rooney, who ran Melville for many years. His father-in-law died, owned a company called H.H. Brown, a shoe company. And he put it up with Goldman Sachs, but he was playing golf with a friend of mine here in Florida and mentioned to this friend, the guy said, why don't you call Warren? He called me at the end of the golf match, and in 5 minutes I basically had a deal. But I knew Frank, and I knew the kind of business, and I sort of knew the basic economics of a shoe business, and so I could buy it. And quantitatively, I got to decide what the price is. That's either yes or no. I mean, I don't fool around a lot with negotiations. So if they name a price that makes sense to me, I buy it. And if they don't, I was happy the day before, so I'll be happy the day after without owning it. Yeah.
Coca-Cola just announced a drop in expectations in terms of future earnings and fourth quarter earnings. And in light of the fact that Coke has a lot of their profits coming in from outside the United States, how do you think the Asian crisis, so to speak, is going to affect Coke, and for that matter, the U.S. economy in general?
The question is about the Asian crisis and how it affects a company like Coke that recently announced that the earnings, actually they just announced their third quarter earnings, but a few weeks ago they tipped people off that they were going to be lower in the fourth quarter and so on. Well, basically I love it, but because the market for Coca-Cola products is going to grow far faster over the next 20 years internationally than it will in the United States. It'll grow in the United States on a per capita basis, but it's going to grow faster elsewhere. So the fact that it's going to be a tough period for, who knows, 3 months or 3 years, but it won't be tough for 20 years. I mean, people are still going to, they're going to work productively around the world, and they're going to find that this is a bargain product in terms of the portion of their working day that they have to give up in order to have one of these, or better yet, 5 of them a day, like I do. This is a product. In 1936, when I first bought 6 of those for a quarter and sold them for a nickel each, and it was in a 6.5 ounce bottle, and you paid a 2 cent deposit on the bottle, that was a 6.5 ounce bottle for a nickel at that time. It's now a 12 ounce can, which if you buy it on weekends, or if you buy it in bigger quantities, so much money doesn't go to the packaging, I mean, you essentially can buy the 12 ounces for not much more than 20 cents. So you're paying not much more than twice the per ounce price of 1936. It is a product that's gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in relative to people's earning power over the years, and which people love. In 200 countries, you have the per capita use going up every year for a product that's over 100 years old, and that dominates the market. I mean, it's unbelievable. One thing that people don't understand is one of the things that makes this product, this is worth tens and tens of billions of dollars, is one simple fact about really all colas, but we'll call it Coca-Cola for the moment. It happens to be a name I like. Cola has no taste memory. You can drink one of these at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock. The one at 5 o'clock will taste just as good to you as the one you drank early in the morning. You can't do that with cream soda, root beer, orange, grape, you name it. All of those things accumulate on you. Most foods, and and beverages accumulate on you. You get sick of them after a while. And if you eat, I mean, we get these people who go to work for us who sees candy, and we tell them they eat all the candy they want. And the first day they go crazy. But after a week, they're eating about the same amount they'd eat if they were buying it, because chocolate accumulates on, everything accumulates on. There is no taste memory to cola. And that means that you get people around the world that are heavy users that'll drink 5 a day, or Diet Coke, maybe 7 or 8 a day or something of the sort. They'll never do that with other products. So you get this incredible per capita consumption. The average person in this part of the world, well, maybe a little north of here, drinks about 64 ounces of liquid a day. And you can have all 64 ounces of that be Coke, and you will not get fed up with Coke if you like it to start with, in the least. But if you do that with almost anything else, if you eat just one product all day, you'll get a little sick of it after a while. And it's a huge factor. So that today, over 1 billion 8-ounce servings of Coca-Cola products will be sold in the world. And that will grow year by year. It'll grow in every country, virtually. And it'll grow on a per capita basis. And 20 years from now, it'll grow a lot faster internationally than in the U.S. So I really like that market better, because there is more growth there over time. But it will hurt them it is hurting them in the short term right now. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, Coca-Cola went public in, I think it was 1919. Stock sold for $40 a share. It went back before that. It was the Candler family, and they went back. They bought it for $2,000, the whole business. Asa Candler back in the late 1880s in a couple of purchases. So now he goes public in 1919, $40 a share. 1 year later, it's selling for $19, gone down 50% in 1 year. Now you might think that's some kind of disaster, and you might think that sugar prices increased and the bottlers were rebellious and a whole bunch of things. You could always find a few reasons why that wasn't the ideal moment to buy it. Years later, you'd have seen the Great Depression, and you'd have seen World War II, and you'd seen sugar rationing, and you'd seen thermonuclear weapons, and the whole thing. There's always a reason. But in the end, if you'd bought one share for $40 and reinvested the dividends, it'd be worth about $5 million now. And that factor so overrides anything else. I mean, if you're right about the business, you'll make a lot of money. And the timing part of it is a very tricky thing. So I don't worry about any given event if I've got a wonderful business, what it does to next year or something of the sort. There price controls have been in this country at various times, and that's fouled up even the best of businesses. I mean, I wouldn't be able to raise the price on December 26th of See's Candy if we had price controls, and we've had them in this country. But that doesn't make it a lousy business if that happens to happen, because you're not going to have price controls forever. We had them in the early 70s. So the wonderful business. You can figure out what will happen. You can't figure out when it will happen. You don't want to focus too much on when. You want to focus on what. If you're right about what, you don't have to worry about when very much. Is there an area I'm missing back there any place? Or I just want to make sure I'm not focusing all of them on one place. Let me get this gentleman over here.
Most human mistakes, but the most successful of those will learn lessons from those mistakes and use them to benefit themselves later. What investment mistakes have you made, or that you feel that you made, and how can you use those lessons?
The question is about my business mistakes. How much time do you have? Well, the interesting thing about the mistakes is that in investments, at least for me and for my partner Charlie Munger, the biggest mistakes have not been mistakes of commission, they've been mistakes of omission. They're where we knew enough about the business to do something, and for one reason or another, we sat there sucking our thumbs instead of doing something. And so we've passed up things where we could have made billions and billions of dollars from things we understood. Forget about things we don't understand. In fact, I could make billions out of Microsoft. Doesn't mean anything because I never understand Microsoft. But if I can make billions out of healthcare stocks, then I shouldn't make it, and I didn't. When the Clinton healthcare program was proposed and they all went in the tank, we should have made a ton of money out of that because I could understand it, and I didn't make it. I should have made a ton of money out of Fannie Mae back in the mid-'80s because I understood it and I didn't do it. Those are billion-dollar mistakes or multi-billion-dollar mistakes that generally accepted accounting principles don't pick up. The mistakes you see, I made a mistake buying U.S. Air Preferred some years ago. I mean, I had a lot of money around. I make mistakes when I get cash. Charlie tells me to go to a bar instead. Don't hang around the office. But I hang around the office, and I got money in my pocket. I do something dumb.